them come. This is their fate.
Moving on to the games. Games. The first thing I want to talk about, and when you kind of took it from me, was that Saints Row, man. It's looking terrible. And
what happened to your boys over there?
Man, I don't know, G. I knew it was bad when I saw the characters being introduced, and I felt like, well, they could probably make it's gonna live or die on the writing. And as soon as I started seeing cutscenes, I started seeing introductions to the characters and them trying to be funny, I knew that it was going to be trash. And that's exactly what we got. So based off of everybody's review, the story is trash, which I expected. But I did not expect all of the technical issues. I expected it to at least have a fun gameplay loop. But they just kept saying it's mediocre, reminds them of 2000s, and I was just like, I'm not going to play that type of game in 2022. There's plenty of other games out there that's probably much better and cost me less, so why would I play this one? So, yeah, it's a definite skip for me. As I expected, I thought it was going to be trash, and from the deductions, I was going to give it a shot because simply you think, from what they were showing, the gameplay didn't look terrible, but when they were showing me how people weren't doing the right stuff, you couldn't get your animations off, people would get stuck in T stances, even during major cutscenes. I'm like, bro, y'all are not ambitious enough to be this trash. Like, the game don't look that great. So I had to chalk it up to an L, man. I don't know. I don't know what to say about Saints Row. All I can say is that it disappointed. I played a lot of Saints Row 1 and I played a lot of Saints Row 2. People kept saying all you need to do is revision the formula of that. I'm like, no, you got to do something better and different. Because if you try to do that, all you're going to have to fall on is graphics and story. And unfortunately, they failed at graphic, story, and gameplay, at least based off what the critics are saying, all the reviewers. I haven't played the game myself necessarily, so I'm not finna say that I can attest to it. But I mean, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, what they're showing you is what they're getting. They're not trying to deceive you. Sometimes they are, like that Rumbleverse that they gave a 9 out of 10 on AGN. I said, boy, y'all gotta be kidding me. But maybe it's good.
They gave that a 9 out of 10?
They gave Rumbleverse a 9 out of 10. I played that game for an hour, and I didn't see not one thing that was worthy of a 9 out of 10. It felt clunky. It felt very, even the controls weren't intuitive. Everything about that game did not seem fun. It to intensify the fun of the game. It seemed very spammy, clingy. It didn't have any cues to understand when you're trying to hit. It didn't have a lock on system. Everything about the game did not scream 9 out of 10. But that's what IGN gave it. Tops that game is a 4. So
that boy's falling asleep. He was like, man, we need to.
I said, man, cut something else on. I said, man, we got to cut something else on. He said, what you mean? I said, man, bro, I cannot keep playing this game. This ain't making me sleepy because it was just bad. But yeah, I tried Rumbleverse.
Like how you was at the beginning of the podcast, sleepy. And not just
oh my goodness, here we go, man. My energy is on 1,000. That's all my energy ever is on. It's on 1,000, G. But yeah, Saints Row just looked terrible. It's reviewing poorly. Have you seen any other reviews, Josh or Jalen? Y'all ain't even care.
Kotaku. I mean, I ain't care about. I ain't even know they had as many Saints Row as they did. I mean, I started looking at Saints Row back when they think it was the third one. To be honest with you, because them games started getting out of hand. But
why you hate Saints Row? Why you hate purple? That's there it is.
Well, actually, purple is my favorite color, so maybe that's why I'm so envious because they did such injustice with purple. Fun fact, it is my favorite color, but it just, I don't know. My brother used to play, and we used to share the Xbox 360. I'm like, man, please cut that game off, bro. This game is stupid. Please cut it off, bro.
But you didn't like the baggy jeans?
Which one was that? 3?
He must have been playing 3.
It was 3.
Oh, it's 3.
Man.
It just didn't make sense. It was just a lot of stuff was just there for no reason. I get it. It can be a gag and stuff like that, but I mean, it's just a sandbox of like gags, if you will. And I just thought that was
Boring.
you could be playing Call of Duty, or you know what I'm saying, something way more engaging and just instead of just doing and blowing up random stuff or whatever. It's like I almost felt as though like it would have more appeal if I was like a little kid and just loved all the little kablooey stuff. Similar like how I used to like Dynasty Warriors, like fighting all the enemies. I'm like, man, this is so cool. Like I'm just mashing through all these
At
robots
15
and
frames per
enemies.
second.
Well, at Dynasty Warriors actually ran pretty smooth, believe it or not. But
On what
or
console?
I'm gonna just say Dynasty Warriors Gundam. Gundam ran good.
What
I don't know
console,
about all
bro?
the samurais, Orochi, and all that type of stuff. On the PS2, Dynasty Warriors 2 Gundam was running smooth. Like to my knowledge, you know what I'm saying? To my knowledge, it was running good. I don't remember that mug slowing down.
I'm talking about 4 or 5. I'm talking about 4 and 5, bro. 4 and 5. I don't know, bro.
I usually played the Gundam ones. They are the same thing, them Tecmo Koei games. I just wasn't keen. I was younger, you know what I mean? I thought that was cool. But point that I'm making is it's like low engagement. Like it just, I don't know. You just gotta have like a low threshold for engagement in a game and just be doing random stuff.
Yeah, like your brain stimulating that, like this is actually working for you. I understand that, man, but it sound like hate to me. What you think? That's what you think, man. You think that's hate?
No,
you think that's real?
I honestly didn't even know anything about Saints Row until like 2 was out, and like I hear like some of my friends talk about it. But
really,
yeah. I mean, realistically, I never really was into all the GTA games or anything like that. And from what I understood, it was just like a GTA clone, but it was more focused on like the gangs and stuff like that.
I'm trying to figure
honestly,
out how y'all did not
remember.
get into the GTA series like that. I'm trying to figure this out.
I didn't get into it because I didn't have like a PS2 for a while. Like I had mainly a GameCube, and then when I did get a PS2, I just personally was like more interested in like, oh, I want to play God of War and all these other games.
Did you make the decision to get the GameCube, or was it like your mom's decision to get you a GameCube?
No, it was my choice because I got that the like 2000 or 2001. It was like, oh, it got Sonic on it. It got this. It got Pokemon. I want that.
Y'all, I feel like y'all skipped something. That's what I feel like when I hear that. I feel like y'all skipped something, bro.
I played GTA. Like I had GTA. I used to play GTA 2. I remember GTA 1 was on the Game Boy. I was playing that before. But this after playing GTA 2, I used to like GTA 2 a lot. It was a little overhead, like driving a little car. They're like, you know what I'm saying? It was ugly, but we used to die in the game. They used to be like, oh, like he's you know, I thought that stuff was funny, bro. Like I'm like, man, I like this game. Yeah, when it's you played it, right?
Yeah, I played it.
Yeah, they be like, oh, I used to think that was so funny when I was a kid, bro. And I used to love GTA 2, and I got mad when the game wouldn't load because it had that red loading bar and it showed them little pictures of the people and stuff.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, fast forward, I played GTA 3. You know, the little cheats and stuff like that, jumping in place, Vice City and stuff. I never played San Andreas, but
crazy.
When I played the other ones, I just didn't. I used to see the missions and stuff like that, but I ain't conceptualized. I used to just go around killing people and stuff like that. And after a certain point in time, I'm like, I ain't finding this enjoyable. Like,
I probably played all the PS2 GTAs for like an hour each, just driving around and like doing random stuff. And like, it was never actually like, I thought it was fun just to like go around, but the game itself wasn't actually that interesting because I didn't know, all about the story and stuff like that. The first one I actually played through was like GTA 4, but I feel like at that point I was over that style of open world game. So yeah, it just really missed me.
Really got no stake in open world chaotic games like Saints Row. Okay.
Not for real. Like, I mean, I literally asked my friends this past weekend. I'm like, what is so good about San Andreas? Like, I played a little bit of it, but I don't know.
The best one, Jalen played it too.
What you mean the best
Crackdown.
one?
The loading
Oh
screen.
my god!
Oh, Crackdown.
Man, this man paused for a fact. He said, "Crackdown." I said, "Nah, Jay."
Man, you gotta
Played
get the
Crackdown
shy
1
gen,
and 2.
man.
You played Crackdown 1 and 2?
Jumping over buildings,
Oh my
throwing
god!
cars. Yeah,
Man, I
it
played
was
the first
GTA
one.
with all the mods.
Nah, man.
Nah, for real though. I played the first one, thought that one was straight, and then I played it again. I was like, man, this game cheesy, dog. Like, ain't nothing to do. You just keep killing the same different. You keep killing different people, but I'm like, this game trash.
Well, give y'all a rundown on why I feel like these types of games are appealing. This is an open sandbox of doing crazy stuff sometimes, but then they also have like a little bit better rooted stories in reality, sort of. Not like super reality, but it's like it kind of gives you a understanding of what people perceive as a gangster or whatever, and then you can kind of go out and play as one and kind of make your own story. You can be a good person, you can be a bad person, and it kind of gives you like the freedom to kind of make that up. But then again, the missions are very much so you have to do these things in order to get past it. But I think the biggest draw was one, it's Grand Theft Auto, so you can go steal all the cars in the game. You can go, run around and blow up stuff. You can also run around and do the missions, and sometimes the missions were appealing. At least when they first started to come around, it wasn't as if you were doing the same thing over and over again. Obviously, some repetition was there, but at least you had this big 3D space that you could run around and play in. And that was like the first games to do it. But then they started incorporating stuff that you can like real storylines, actually going through and finishing up missions for a certain person and actually having good stories to tell throughout the missions and like things like that. But it was like an urban playground. You can run around and do whatever you want. Obviously, that is the appeal of those games. It can be pretty boring for others. But what Saints Row is trying to do in this game is they're trying to tell. I don't know if they're trying to really tell a good story, but from what I was able to read, and I watched a bunch of different reviews, is that simply their story wasn't good enough, and their characters that they tried to portray as good anti-heroes were terrible. Their jokes didn't land. The writing was very badly paced, and all you have left is the world. But then when the world is looked at, it's very bland, not lively, doesn't have much to offer, and the missions are very repetitive in that sense. You have nothing to fall on. This is literally just a bad game all around. Story, everything. So there's no reason to try to go and cosplay in this game, be whoever you want if the game sucks in general. Combat and all that, it's not fun to play those types of games. It's repetitive and boring. So they just lost me in that. Like even Far Cry is not a top tier game to me in any sense, but because the loop is fun to me and I enjoy having random things happen, or like me going to do my outposts, even though they're very repetitive, it's the core gameplay that's fun to me. Being able to tackle them any way I see fit, being able to upgrade my weapons, being able to feel the impact of me shooting someone in the head from a distance, or even like, creeping up on someone. So the gameplay sells it. Story hasn't sold it in a very long time. I don't think the stories are that great since Far Cry 3. But I don't see how they can recreate good stories all over and over and over again. I don't really see any game doing that. But as long as you have a core solid gameplay, you're going to get me. As long as it's there, I'm fine. But that is not what this is. This is pretty much a bad take all around, at least especially from what everyone is saying. At some point, I'll probably give it a shot in my own time. I won't play it immediately because I don't feel like, from what I'm hearing, it doesn't deserve that immediate response to go out and grab. It just deserves that maybe you pick it up later down the line if they fix their game, because it's just way too many bugs and things like that. So
what I was going to say is a lot of people complain it didn't have a identity of like what it is in 4, and I think that that would be a problem for it if like Saints Row had all these wacky things going on and they didn't have it. But what I was going to say is that from my perception, even though I didn't really play the Saints Row games,
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like they had like a strong identity over the 4 games just because like they're all so weird and different. Like the first 2 games are probably like the most similar, but I think even still they, how to put it, tone wise they're all like super different. Like 4, you're doing crazy stuff, getting hit by cars, trying to get insurance fraud. And then no, that's 3. And then like 4, you got like superpowers. And then so for this to be like change stuff, I think it makes sense because realistically, it's kind of like hard to pick a identity
Mm-hmm.
after all the games have been so weird and different. But at the same time, if you don't have anything, if you don't have my problem with remakes is that they usually don't have the best parts of the old game. And if you don't have the best parts of the old game, then it's kind of like, what's the point? Are you going to replace it with something better? But most of the time, they don't have anything better to replace it with. So it's kind of pointless. Plus, y'all got technical issues. So it's kind of a fail all around.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fail. And that is the synopsis or the summary here. It's a failure. I feel bad for the people that worked on it. I mean, hopefully they can bounce off of this and go to something else, or maybe Deep Silver can regroup and really make this game whole. But right now, it's pretty trash. Writers need to be fired. They needed new writers in the first place when they first introduced it. I kind of called that. Everybody did, but I knew it once I seen the characters. I was like, they don't really fit what we're trying to do here. So in order for you to make them fit, you have to do a lot of work with the writing, and they did not do that. So, yeah, I mean,
I think you might have said it the last podcast, but did you think the writing in the old games were better, or it's just like
nah. I
that
think
writing is not
this
good
writing
anymore
had to be big because they took out the old characters.
because
If
they
they
took out the
did,
old stuff, so they had
yeah,
to
they had
ramp
to
it up.
make these
Yeah.
people look. They make a reason for these to be put in there. Like, now, don't put emphasis on revamping and doing something like this if they're going to be trash. So they put the emphasis
Mm-hmm.
on the characters being good because they added new ones and they introduced it as this is your new crew. Why do I like this crew? That's the question you now
Mm-hmm.
have to answer. They did not answer that. So it's really not something that we're holding them to a standard because they didn't have it before. We're holding them to their promise. Their promise is that this crew is going to be able to replace the old crew as funny, as and entertaining, or even just enjoyable to play with. And it was not the case. So they lost. And it's
Yeah, they thought they
fine.
didn't need the old stuff, and yeah,
Yeah.
you did.
It's fine. It's not like they needed to have the greatest story, but they needed to be palatable and they needed the characters to at least be interesting. And from what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing is that the characters are not interesting and they're very boring and bland. And the world is too. So that causes me not to want to engage with it. But later down the line, hopefully it changes.